Hello, everybody. Welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope we're doing well, and today we're doing a box office preview for this upcoming weekend, which will once again see the Minecraft movie make a lot of money. Right now, projected to make $79.8 million according to Box Office Theory, which would mean it's only going to be dropping in the low 50s to the high 40s according to some estimates, which is an insanely strong hold from week 1 to week 2, especially in the domestic market, bringing its total domestic to $283.7 million, meaning this film will easily make $300 million after its third weekend and likely will continue to make money going into the rest of the month of April and maybe even into early May, as this film has no major competition until that time, really not until Thunderbolts comes out. And as you all know, competition itself does not automatically mean that a film will start to lose money or not make nearly as much money because, hey, guess what? People can go see more than one movie. And also it really comes down to, hey, which movie do people want to see first? And because Minecraft is just going to be so dominant on top of the food chain here, most people are going to be having to see this film first instead, and especially amongst those younger demographics. I mean, the kids are loving this movie. Now, as someone who really did not like the film, who actually hated the movie in many ways, I don't quite understand it completely, but hey, I obviously will always be able to, look at and say things as they are, call balls and strikes, and say the reality is that Minecraft is clearly hitting a very key cultural note here and is definitely taking over the zeitgeist and is able to make a lot of money because of that, right? So Box Office Theory is just one of those sites, but every single site that is projecting box office stuff here is talking about how this movie is going to make a ton of money. So let's just go ahead and dive right into it. Box Office Theory, of course, the number one film this weekend will easily be a Minecraft movie. $79.8 million, 51% hold from last weekend. Also still dominating the vast majority of theaters. The number two spot, according to them, is going to be The King of Kings from Angel Studios. This is a new animated feature which will be telling the story of Christ from the perspective of Charles Dickens in animated form. And I've seen the film. I've actually been able to see an early copy. Shout out to Angel Studios for giving me a review copy. And I'm going to be honest here, it was not really what I was hoping it would be. The trailer for the film is a lot better than the movie itself actually is. That being said, I do think that this film will definitely be one that a lot of younger kids, single-digit age kids, will be able to enjoy. I think it's also a very good introduction for younger kids to certain elements of the faith. But again, I do think that the older audiences, the adults, may not really come away with the film as really thinking that highly of it. Also very interesting that's coming out the week before Easter. This really would have, I think, played a lot better had it maybe come out opening weekend, having that be over the Easter weekend. But hey, Angel Studios is going to do what Angel Studios does, and even with that being the case, it is right now projected to be the best opening for an Angel Studios film that we've seen in quite a long time, as most of their films open in the single digits, and this one expected to make $17.1 million, at least according to Box Office Theory, taking that number 2 spot. So again, that's definitely going to be a big win for them in the long run. Number 3 film is a film called The Amateur from 20th Century Studios. That's, of course, a subsidiary of Disney. So The Amateur expected to make $13.5 million. I believe this is a kind of like a spy thriller type movie. So again, not too much money being made there because, hey, the budget of this film was a bit on the higher side. Right now projected to have cost around $60 million. So yeah, having a $13.5 million opening weekend domestically on a $60 million budget is definitely not the strongest. So Disney continues to see a lot of woes in every single one of its studios actually at this point. A new film for A24, Warfare, which is actually from the same guy who did Civil War last year. So war seems to be the theme. However, it's also co-directed not only by Garland, but also by someone who served in the military. And so it's supposed to give kind of an account of a, in real time perspective of what military life is like. So it actually looks kind of interesting to me. Definitely one that I would, be interested in checking out. Making around $9.1 million. This film cost a lot less than The Amateur did, costing around $20 million. So still has to make quite a bit more to make its money back, right? $9.1 million is not the best opening for a $20 million budgeted film. Remembering that, again, studios do not get 100% of the box office receipts, and there's also marketing costs to take into account, though they probably aren't that high for this film. That being said, Warfare expected to get the number 4 spot. And the number 5 spot coming from a new film from Universal Studios called, Universal Pictures rather, called Drop. Apparently, it's a thriller based off of the AirDrop feature on Apple devices. That's the state of our movie industry, everybody, is that we have to take features off of our iPhones and off of of just anything in general and then make a movie off of it, because that's just the ideas coming out of Hollywood. 8.5 million, not surprised that it's not going to be that high there. The film drop having around an $11 million budget, so that is definitely a much better ratio there of 8.5 million opening to $11 million budget. Still has, again, to make a little bit more money to break even, but definitely not going to be losing too much money for Universal if it doesn't make that much more than that. And also the last of the new releases coming in the number 6 spot would be The Chosen Last Supper Part 3. That's right, Part 3 coming out here, $6.1 million. Interesting that none of them have been projected to make as much as the Part 1 did. Again, I don't know exactly what that actually means, but Fathom Events clearly is definitely being able to capture quite a bit of audience, as their per theater ratio has been pretty good. So they've been selling those screenings pretty darn well. Going over to Box Office Pro, they are also projecting a massive weekend for the Minecraft movie, $70 to $85 million. So again, very similar numbers there. Very, very strong. Now, people have maybe been asking, okay, how does this compare to films like the Barbie film, or how does this compare to films like the Super Mario Brothers movie? And I will say, it's doing well, but it's not doing as well, at least domestically, right? So whereas in the opening weekend, it seemed like, hey, there's going to be some interesting numbers here, $162 million after its first Sunday, to $211 million for the Super Mario Brothers movie, to $167 million for the Barbie film. By the end of its first Wednesday at 193, again, that's still very good, but Mario had been at 259 and Barbie had been at 245. So Minecraft movie is not going to make more than either of those two films. Barbie had gone on to make $658 million. Again, these are all adjusted for inflation. $658 million at the domestic box office, and Super Mario Brothers made $594. So it's not going to make that much money, but it's still going to be making probably north of $400 million at the domestic box office. And that's why I will definitely say at this point, based on these numbers and based on these projections, I predict that the Minecraft movie is likely going to get to $1 billion at the global box office. Now, we have to, of course, wait and see what the actual numbers are, and of course, to see what those internationals are. But based off of everything we're seeing in the tracking, $1 billion is absolutely on the table for this film. Again, I don't think it's going to make nearly as much as Super Mario or as Barbie, but still, making $1 billion off of a budget of this kind is definitely a huge win for the studios. Box Office Pro also has The King of Kings set at the number 2 spot, $12 to $18 million. The Amateur at the number 3 spot at $12 to $15 million. And that is, of course, their top 3 box office report. Also having another massive weekend, $83 million, a bit more bullish here. But hey, a lot of the people were wrong last weekend by quite a bit. Remember that Deadline and all the box office so-called experts were saying, oh yeah, it's going to open to 60 to 70 million. And then it opened it up to like $160 million when everything was said and done. So even when they made their on-the-run adjustments to 100 million, 130 million, they were still off by a good $30+ million or so. So clearly, this movie is capturing something that people are not able to quite quantify. There's a lot of videos going around. Kids are having a lot of fun with it, but there's also a lot of chaos. So will that chaos and all of the nonsense and the popcorn throwing and the chicken fights and all this really stupid stuff, will that actually be able to drive maybe audiences away? It possibly could, especially since, hey, this is not just for the teens. It's also being geared towards and being marketed towards the kids, right? The really younger kids with their families. So will the teens drive those crowds away? It's, again, seemingly not going to happen at this point, but hey, if those stories get any more traction, that obviously could potentially still happen. Now, going to the actual box office right now, right, Minecraft is dominating the daily performances, right, 7.7 million to the number 2 spot being Chosen the Last Supper Fathom Events. So the fact that the Fathom event is doing that well on a Wednesday of all days compared to everything else out in theaters right now is pretty amazing. Also, Disney Snow White is, let's just say, it's not doing well, all right? In comparison to the Marvels, it is doing a bit better, but not by much, right? On the third Monday, it dropped all the way to $409,000. That's right, under $1 million by quite a bit. Also, by the third Wednesday, $394,000. So even though it is doing a little bit better than where the Marvels was, it's still tracking behind the Marvels, 78.7 at the same point of release versus 80.5. I do think that by the end of its run, Snow White will have made more than the Marvels, but that really isn't saying all that much. We'll have to see what the internationals are. Again, there's the chance, there's the possibility that this movie does not reach $200 million because of how poorly it's doing, not only domestically, but also and especially internationally. But we'll have to wait and see what those updated international numbers are. and the domestic numbers are as well. Regardless of any of that, though, it is just not doing well. The reason why I think $200 million is still on the table, by the way, because some people are like, wow, how could you say that? Disney is known for pushing theaters to the limit, right? And Disney is known for bullying theaters in many ways. And so they will force that film down theaters' throats as much as they possibly can to squeeze out every last cent that they can, even if they have 20 showings of this in a day and only 1 or 2 people go to those showings. Hey, that is going to be how they try to really nickel and dime this thing all the way to $200 million, I think, right? That's why I'm not leaving that off the table. However, based on the tracking, right, historically, there's very little reason to believe that this is going to make $200 million, right? It's just not tracking that well. But hey, never underestimate Disney when it comes to pushing their movies over the edge. Minecraft overall globally, $343 million, which is interesting because if you actually follow the tracking here, right, which is kind of surprising, based off of the opening weekend of $162 million, it's actually been tracking beneath the average. So it's opening weekend is probably more so equivalent to what a lot of summer movies have been. Had this movie been released over the summer, it might have actually been a better release time for the film because more people would have been able to see it during the week, right? Those teens that would have been out of school would have been able to actually go to see this film more often during the week. And so could that actually end up being something that keeps the film from making as much as some of those other films that we had mentioned previously? I think it absolutely could, because as you can see here, it's fallen beneath the standard here based off of the weekday performance. Now, I do think it's going to go up again once this weekend comes around because obviously a strong second weekend is being projected here, but still does want to be mentioned nonetheless that is indeed happening. Now, let's go to the charts because we love charts here on OMB Reviews. Now, according to the most recent updated numbers, Minecraft at $343 million, around $14.5 million in China, of all places. Again, always going to call studios out for doing business there. But of course, China has also been threatening to potentially bar any American movies as this, quote, trade war goes on. Scary, ooh. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. But hey, this film right now could have a pretty good chance of breaking even this weekend, right? Right now, only $60 million in the red, and that is, of course, based off of a $150 million budget. The fact that marketing is added on top of that, and they only get about, again, 55% from the domestic audience, 40% from the internationals without China, and then only 25% from China proper. So this is definitely going to be a huge win for them this weekend, because if it doesn't break even outright this weekend, it'll get pretty darn close to it. So this film, I'm predicting right now, will make a pretty decent amount of profit. And as I mentioned before, if the film is able to get to over $500 million, and I think that's definitely on the table, right? If we're talking about, close to $80 million domestically, right? That already puts it over $400 million at the global box office. And then if it just makes around $100 million internationally, that's definitely possible for it to do as well, then yeah, that would put it over $500 million, and that would mean that it's definitely on track to be able to do well enough to make somewhere between $900 and $1.2 billion, and I think that's probably going to be the range that we'll end up seeing on the film overall. The film The Working Man, I know some people have really enjoyed this film, still in the red, right? Still has a ways to go, and probably won't break even at the box office outright, but $28 million in the red for that film. Death of a Unicorn, the numbers really haven't been updating as frequently as I had hoped. Let me see actually if there's any updates here from the internationals. Maybe that is the reason why the chart is the way it is. Let's see. There it is. Yeah. So there we go. 9.3 million, a little bit better. 17 million in the red though, still for that film. A24. So again, take that with a grain of salt because A24 has a very different type of release schedule, but still not all that fantastic. Woman in the Yard still in the flop territory, though it is also very low budget. And then Snow White, $170 million, $325 million in the red. And again, that's just based off of a $270 million production budget. So the chances that we find out the film actually had a net cost higher than that is still likely to happen. And if that indeed does happen, then guess what? That means this film will have lost even more than that. So we're still talking about a movie that's going to be well north of $300 million in its losses when everything is said and done. But hey, those are the numbers as they stand. So what are y'all's thoughts? The big news, of course, being a Minecraft movie, right? Is it going to make $1 billion? Right now, it seems like that is going to happen. Again, if these holds are indeed accurate, right? If we see it hold in the 50% range, even in the high 40s range, and it makes another $79, $80+ million, bring its domestic to $350-ish million, yeah, guess what? That's going to be a huge win for them. And if those internationals continue to be very strong as well, and we see the film creep over $500 million at the global box office, then yeah, that's definitely going to put $1 billion even more so on the table. And so what are y'all's thoughts on this. Do you think it's going to happen? Also, thoughts on any of the other films coming out. You're going to go see films like The Amateur, King of Kings, Warfare, Drop, or anything like that. Let me know your thoughts on those films also in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button, light that fire button, and obviously smash the button as well. You guys are all amazing and beautiful. Have a wonderful rest of your day. A blessed Friday of Passion Week. Getting very close to Palm Sunday and Holy Week. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge special shout out to all of my Chosen of Valhalla members, starting off first with my people on Patreon, Father Luca Illick and Miss Modern Muses. Check out her YouTube channel by the same name, Miss Modern Muses. Also to my Subscribe Star people, Matt317. Check out his Twitch channel by the same name, Matt317. And lastly to my YouTube member, Mr. Roy. Shout out to you, good sir. And if you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and video, check out the top link in the video description below where you get access to that. Also, you get access to a plethora of other things. You get your name listed at the end of every live stream and video, like you saw in those names that came up before this video started. And also access to a giveaways channel that I host over on the Discord server where I give away 4Ks, Steelbooks, Blu-rays, all kinds of stuff. So check that out if you're interested in that. Also, I have an exclusive podcast that I hold at least once a month, and it's always a good time, and you get extra bonus content with that also. So if any of that sounds interesting, again, check out that top link in the video description below. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless.